Welcome back, Commanders. Today we're diving into the tumultuous waters of Warthunder's naval gameplay. The recent Alpha Strike update has stirred quite the tempest, and it's time to set sail to explore its impact on the high seas. So what's the deal with Gaijin re-ruining Naval just in time for a major event? It feels like we've stepped back in time, hurtling back a few years to when fast-firing nimble ships dominated the meta. And armor? Well, that's about as relevant as a soggy biscuit. It's almost like we're using the flesh of our crew to protect the ships. Crew members dropping like flies at the slightest mention of a gunfight. I thought we were finally reaching the point where large ships felt tough, like battleships should. But alas, Gaijin seems to be juggling armor and damage like a circus act gone wrong. The painful truth: fixing something in ground realistic battles has turned our majestic naval vassals into flimsy paper boats. The game unable to have one dial turned without the button breaking somewhere else. Sure, I could abuse this newfound fragility by hopping aboard meta ships and raining destruction down on all these newbies that are here for the event, but where's the thrill in that? I crave challenging fights, underdog victories, the smell of salt water in my nostrils. The existing naval problem? It's now exacerbated. Those super coastals, more powerful than ever, despite some attempts to nerf certain boats, namely the SKR. Take this Project 204 for instance. Its high explosive shell packs a whopping 160 grams of explosives. It has 5mm of penetration. Previously, it couldn't scratch a destroyer's paint unless it aimed at the AA mounts or the bridge. But now, it's a cruiser killer. Gaijin, you've shortened ship lifespans faster than any torpedo strike ever could. Battleship players, they're fuming. Low tier coastals, they're drowning their sorrows. And those elusive players who love this? Well, I'm yet to actually spot or speak to one. Meanwhile, the flooding mechanic that was recently added, which added some realism to the game, is practically non-existent. You're dead before you can even utter the words, "Abandon ship!" The Project 204, the little brother who now kicks his older sibling square in the family jewels, is a prime example of this. At 3.7 battle rating, it's become a punchline almost. Classic feature creep, my friends. Naval should have stuck to coastal and destroyer combat until it hit the sweet spot. That's where the real fun has always lie, in my opinion. But let's talk about modeling damage. Tanks, they're kind of easy. 1 or 2 plates, take the hits, you've got a few modules to look after. But warships, full broadsides of up to 30 shells at once, dancing across multiple plates. It's like juggling cannonballs while riding a unicycle. Kudos to Gaijin for trying, but maybe they bit off more than they could chew. Maybe that's why certain naval games just function on HP. You see, when Naval was instituted, when it was implemented, it was only really going to be coastal boats and some larger warships like frigates. But players were clamoring for larger ships because the knowledge wasn't there about these smaller boats, and everybody knows these large names like Bismarck and Iowa and that other Japanese ship that I can never remember its name of. Oh, that's right, that puny thing Yamato and its sisters. Everyone knows those, and that's great. It would be amazing to see those in this game, brought to life in this engine. Those majestic behemoths that could weather storms and shrug off the most withering of fire. But here we are, standing at the crossroads where ground realistic battles once whispered. Best armor is no armor. From a damage model perspective, Warthunder Naval feels like ground battles on water now, minus the aerial spectacle of Kaz because it's effectively neutralized in this mode. The good news is I've got other irons in the fire, I can bide my time, but the last thing Naval needs is to hemorrhage its last remaining player base. It's like patching up a leaky hull while the storm rages. And wouldn't you know it, just when we're adjusting our compass to some nice quality of life changes like audio improvements, proper collision alarms, fancy fire control systems with sensor views, and BAM! Naval event arrives and non-players and fence sitters gleefully shout, "Haha, I told you it's shit!" Some content creators with less fortitude or passion have abandoned ship, but not me. I'm still aboard, navigating the waves, and I'll go down with the ship if I have to. Why? Because I relish the painstaking detail in the ship models, and the rich history behind each vessel, and the distinct lack of effort put into content for this particular niche. But mark my words, I'll diversify my content, and I'll keep my wind in the sails. Remember when sinking an enemy ship took time? That's what made naval battles intriguing, closer to real life, where engagement stretched out like a sailor's yarn. But here's the rub. Many non-naval players struggle to adjust to this gameplay shift. They're used to dogfights and tank skirmishes, quick, intense clashes. Ships, they're floating fortresses, bristling with firepower, taking weeks to get to their destination, a whole day to engage a threat. Sure, there were a couple of ships that danced on the edge of absurdity, but Gaijin patched things up with compartment crew loss and the sinking mechanic. I'm still adrift in mixed feelings. The game mode that I fell in love with. It's like a mermaid's song, both enchanting and haunting at the same time. The sirens of feature creep have lured us towards treacherous waters. We all wanted bigger weapons and bigger ships, and Naval should have stayed coastal, reveling in some destroyer combat until it found the sweet spot. But now we're juggling broadsides, armor, and damage models like circus performers on a rolling deck, and it wouldn't really be that bad if the shifts were minor. But this is a complete flip of the coin. And speaking of rolling decks, can we get better maps? I echo Spookston's sentiment. Gaijin's updates feel like one step forward and two steps back. Complaints? Well, they're met with gaslighting. So I'll keep my powder dry and avoid the hype, and I'll sail my own course, as I always have. The clips you've been seeing in the background are just me testing the various weapons against ships in the test drive. You saw the Project 204 decimate destroyers. You saw the SKR decimate everything except a battleship. You're now seeing the cruisers wipe the board with their 6-inch fast-firing guns. So, my fellow sailors and warriors, let's raise our virtual grog mugs to the chaos of the Alpha Strike update. Will we weather the storm, or sink beneath the waves? Only time and a few well-aimed salvos will tell. Remember, commanders, keep your cannons loaded and your wits sharper than a cutlass. Until next time, fair winds and following seas. The views expressed in this video are solely those of the host and not endorsed by Gaijin Entertainment. Please refrain from throwing actual naval vessels at your screen. Thank you.